Hey, welcome back. Sam Wakefield here, and I am joined today by this guest. His name is Kent Boll. You may have seen him flying around social media, you may have not, but I'm pretty stoked today because of where he's connected. His reputation goes before him, and what we're going to be talking about today is call by call management. What is it? What is it not? What does it look like? What does it not look like? Best practices, bad practices. Might even hit it with a little bit of devil's advocate here because I not even devil's advocate. I think it's good for some things, and personally, I have some strong opinions against it for some ways. But we're going to unpack all of that today in this episode and see where it falls. So, thanks for joining us today, Kent. Man, I'm super stoked to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's start off with a little bit of a history reel. Give everybody a the highlight reel of how your journey through the trades, how you ended up now where you are and what you're doing, and also give everybody a bit of a philosophy. How do you carry yourself? How do you function? Something you function from that really drives you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let me give you a little bit. I have a vast history, I guess, in the trade, so I'll kind of condense it as much as I can. But it started when I was 9 years old working with my dad as an electrician. He had his own electrical business and he was also commercial refrigeration technician, so he had a master's in both. So obviously I did both. It was just him and I. We had no employees or
Hmm.
anything like that. And after high school, I was an electrical foreman. And then in 2005, he said, "Hey, I don't want to do the electrical anymore. I just want to do the refrigeration. And so if you get your master's, you can go ahead and take the electrical, even though there wasn't like quote unquote a lot there."
Sure.
um, I was stoked, right? So at 23 years old, I became a electrical contractor at
Hmm.
23.
Nice.
And I didn't think I was that young at the time, but looking back at it, I was like, that's pretty crazy at 23.
Well, maybe
And so,
perspective, since you started at 9, it felt like you're a full grown adult from the
right,
time you
yeah,
were mid teenagers, right?
it did. It absolutely did. I never felt, I always felt older than my actual age, but so I did that, and I mainly wired new homes, large homes. Like we wired the CEO of Sun Country Airlines home, big houses in
Sure.
Minneapolis, Minnesota, and then the Great Recession of 2008, 2009 came, and all my builders went out of business, didn't have any work,
Hmm.
both, and I found SGI at the time. Some people know what SGI is now called Certain Path.
Sure.
But back in the day when I did that, I it was actually part of Clockwork Home Services, and Clockwork Home Services owns, a franchise at the time, a franchise side and a non-franchise side. So
Hmm.
the franchise side is Benjamin Franklin Plumbing, 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning, Mr. Sparky Electric, and then they own the non-franchise side, which was
Yeah.
what I was on. And
Right.
so
Used
I
to be, what
joined.
is it, Airtime 500, all of that, right?
Yep, right. Yeah, Airtime 500,
So,
electrician success, plumbing success, and then they actually had roofing later on.
hmm.
And they had like a profit day in Minneapolis. I went to it. They explained like the residential repair and replacement model, and I mean, I never heard of any of this before.
Sure.
And for electrical, it was really new. Like there were very few companies back there that did residential service only. It was, HVAC, plumbing, but electrical was kind of a rare thing.
Hmm.
And I heard this and I was like, I'm in. Like I was born for this. Like literally,
Right.
I'm born for this. And so I joined on the spot, and I joined SGI. And after a couple of years, I was promoted to the executive advisory board. So I was sat on the advisory board for 5 years. I helped develop a lot of their electrical sales processes, their pricing model, their pricing book. I would help new clients that came in kind of get their feet
Hmm.
wet. I would sit on panels at the expos and I would do trainings and things like that.
Sure.
And so I built that business up to about 6 million in revenue doing electrical only. Then I purchased an HVAC company in town who was an Airtime 500 member. They
Hmm.
were doing about 8 million. And then I purchased a PSI company in the area, and I rolled those all together, and I created a company called Service Today.
Yeah.
And And then again, I rolled that business into what is now called Platform Partners, and then I just took it out and I sold it to private equity.
Nice.
So I always say I've kind of been every part of it. I've been the guy crawling through attics, running service calls, all the way to where I am today. So
Hmm.
it's
I love it.
it's a
So
long
that
story,
actually
but
is yeah, thanks for the history. It's
yeah,
really fun when we, come across different people that are guests on the show. It's like, how did you end up where you did? Because everybody's
right,
journey is always so wildly different. And
yeah,
the
absolutely,
combinations of things that go into who the person is now, right?
right,
So
exactly.
that's a cool segue because, well, one is all of the amount of exits that you had are really cool. Being
Hmm.
involved with and selling to, some private equity stuff is
Yeah,
really fun. Obviously, that's a hot topic lately.
right, right.
But the other thing that you picked up along the way is especially in your scaling and your growth is call by call management. What is
Hmm.
it,
Hmm.
and how does that work? So give us a good overview before we dive into, some of the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah. So, when I bought the HVAC company, so electrical I was doing very well in. I mastered that. I had it down. We were very
Hmm.
profitable, did very well. When I bought the HVAC company, I thought it would run similar to electrical, and it doesn't. So,
Right.
if anybody's in plumbing or electric and jumping into HVAC, I'll just tell you it's a whole nother monster.
Exactly.
It doesn't run the same. It doesn't operate the same. And I struggled for 2 to 3 years. I was probably -5% profitable in that department, maybe more, maybe worse than that.
Hmm.
And I was with SGI. They weren't able to help me. That organization changed a lot over the years. I joined Service Excellence Training. I joined Praxis S10. I was with a lot of these groups, and nobody really could help me. And I was,
Hmm.
doing about 16 to 18 million at the time. So I was kind of a little bit too big for I think for some of these organizations.
Sure.
And
And when
anyway,
was this? What kind of year time frame
uh,
was
so that
this?
would have been like 2018, 16 to
Yeah.
18, like right in there,
So kind of on the front
17.
end cusp of some of these companies that have blown up so huge,
Yeah,
weren't not nearly as many that had like the systems and stuff to just be able to help people, right?
right. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so I found my mentor, my business coach, Louis Bruno, and I hired him to help me. And he introduced me to his HVAC sales model, which is the one I teach today. And he introduced me to call by call management. And what call by call management? Oh, and by the way, once I implemented the sales structure and the call by call management, I mean, it literally changed the business overnight. We went from,
Mhm.
like I said, in probably a -5% ish to a positive 10% ish in about
Wow.
3 months.
Wow.
Like completely turned it around.
Right.
We had a 70% gross margin in our maintenance department in HVAC. Like that's usually unheard of for most companies. Usually they're
Right.
losing money,
Yeah, absolutely.
dollars in their
Yeah,
maintenance
the
department
service truck's always
to,
the loss
to
leader with service drive
right
sales.
to fund the install department, right?
Yeah.
And so it was an absolute game changer. And then once I started running that model in HVAC, I was like, man, I know how to do this in electric. Like
Hmm.
I know exactly. So I created an electrical version, literally changed our electrical department for the better, even though it was doing well.
Sure.
And then of course we created a plumbing model on
Hmm. Hmm.
after that. And those are the models we run in our platform right now with the 30 companies in there.
Sure.
And so what, call by call, unless you have other questions, but I can kind of go
No, no,
into
that's
what
good.
it is. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
let's do a big overview.
I can talk a lot on this topic. So
Well,
so
that's good.
call by call I always say is four different elements. So the
Okay.
first one is a strict sales process.
Hmm.
Like if we're going to quote unquote call by call manage, we have to kind of know what's going on in the home without
Sure.
actually physically being there if we're going to kind of ride along with every technician per se.
Hmm.
So I don't want my technicians to be robots necessarily. That's not what it is, but they do have to hit certain, milestones,
Sure.
certain points throughout the process so we know what's going on so we can manage it call by call.
Sure. Well, that's just having a professional process. That's not,
Right.
making somebody a robot. That's just like, here's the data we have to have. Here's the
Exactly.
even more important sounds like, here's the emotional communication information we also need to have. not
Right.
just how wide's the plenum, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's the key points, right? And then we have actual what we call by call decline. So at certain key points in the process, if we get a decline on a sale, um, the call by call manager or sales manager is required,
Hmm.
not optional, they're required to get on the phone with the homeowner, not the technician, the homeowner. So a lot of
Sure.
people get that mixed up. So
Hmm.
basically, the technician does what they're supposed to do and propose the item they're supposed to propose. And if the customer doesn't want to move forward with it, it's kind of like, okay, move to the side, technician. It's our turn now,
Sure.
and we're going to see if we can save this call. Because right now marketing is insanely expensive. I mean, we're
Hmm.
people are paying $400 to $600 per lead from,
Hmm.
pay per click and things like that. So these are gold opportunities that we're paying a lot of money for. We can't just roll over and die per se when the customer says no.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I mean, you're closing now, you know that, but but
100%. That's what we try.
and so but we have to have the opportunity, right? Like
Yeah.
it can't just be, yeah, that one didn't go well, send me my next call. Like it can't just be like
Hmm.
that. And
Yeah, for
so
sure. It's
there's
not like,
that.
okay, we're going to get back in 3 months from now and hope for the best on our next
Right,
visit.
yeah, right, yeah. Oh, they'll call back. I'm sure that, that's what every sales guy says, right? Oh,
Yeah.
they're going to call
It's a
back,
be
right?
back.
Absolutely. And and then there's what we call remote ride-alongs. So it's using software. Some people use Slack, some people use WhatsApp,
Hmm.
Microsoft Teams, even text messaging if it's a smaller business. But really, what it is the technician is sending information to the sales manager or the call by call manager in real time while they're
Hmm.
in the house, right? And we call it the vitals, just like going to the doctor, right? So there's certain vitals. Plumbing has their set of vitals, electrical, HVAC, we all have our set
Hmm.
of vitals. And when the vitals fail, we're going to sell them a type of diagnostic, and it's not, we don't call it that. They have different names, but
Sure.
basically we're selling them an idea of, hey, your vitals failed, right? Now we got to figure out why they failed.
Right.
And we charge between $500 and $1,500 to the customer to figure that out. And what that does is it locks us in with that customer because once
Hmm.
they spend money with you, statistically, they don't price shop you after that.
Right.
Plus, you're getting paid for your knowledge, which is one of those things that I'm really passionate about. So you said earlier, what's one of the things you talk about, and I say sell your knowledge. Like
100%.
as a technician, your years of experience is the most valuable thing you own, and I think it's the most devalued thing in our industries because we're
100%.
we're giving it away for free or for a $99 travel fee or an $89. We're going to diagnose your system for $89. It's like that's the most important knowledge I have is how to
Right.
fix it, right? But that's a whole other thing. So,
Sure.
so we have that, and then the fourth piece of it is an optional AI like Rilla, CXC, something like that.
Sure.
So we know what's being said in the home. If a technician is struggling, we can find out if they're using keywords, key phrases in the home, or if they're just simply skipping the process and doing
Sure.
whatever they want.
Sure.
And so, those are the main elements of, in my opinion, the most modern, most mature call by call and
Hmm.
effective model
Sure. Sure.
out there. And
I,
so, yeah.
I like it. So it makes total sense. Now I have so many interesting questions because I've been around companies that do this. I've never
Hmm.
personally worked in one.
Hmm.
And so that's part of my disclaimer there is, and for everybody listening, I'm not the call by call expert. That's
Hmm.
why I brought Kent on the show here.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I, at least in my opinion, it feels like we have to trade something to be able to accomplish this. Because coming from the perspective of what is always doing what's the best for the homeowner, is
Hmm.
always A1. Knowing what our options are available in the industry as far as the amount of potential system enhancements, IAQ, the different levels of equipment that are available.
Hmm.
That's from at least from what I've seen, every company that introduces call by call management is now only chasing volume
Hmm.
and a lot of those other things get kind of pushed to the wayside. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so maybe elaborate a little bit. What do you mean like they're not proposing like options on systems, or they're not proposing enhancements? Is that
No,
what
so
you're saying?
what I've seen is in order for a call by call to work pretty well,
Hmm.
then you've got your technicians in the field with your one, basically we'll call it the salesperson. We're going to call things pretty lay terms here. The
Hmm.
salesperson that's on the phone, right?
Hmm. Okay. Hmm.
So at least from what I've seen from the, I don't know, maybe a couple dozen companies that I've been around across the country,
Hmm.
is no one person is taking enough time with that homeowner long enough to find out their true actual concerns,
Mm,
problems, and then
gotcha.
offering complete solutions
Mm,
to that. And
I
so,
see what you're
meaning
saying.
they're stopping at maybe two stages, the highest end equipment that this company sells because it's fast and easy to install, and there's way less
Gotcha.
on the road, and or
Hmm.
maybe they're not even offering the $5,000 IQ bundle,
Hmm.
which an advisor that sits with somebody a couple hours, every
Hmm.
bit of that would be in the package. So that's at least
Gotcha.
from what I've seen is that big missing piece.
Mm,
Are we chasing volume? Are we chasing
hmm.
quality to the homeowner? What are we after? Now,
Gotcha.
speak to that because I don't
Hmm.
really have an answer here. I'm truly in
Yeah.
this limbo of where's the best place to be in that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so my process is not like that. We absolutely give all options. I'm a very big believer on giving the homeowner all of their options.
Hmm.
Actually, going even further than that, because the reason we take the vital, so let's just talk HVAC.
Yeah.
So HVAC, one of the biggest things we know is most homes will fail airflow. Like their airflow, the ductwork is not set up properly for the system. Every piece of every furnace, every air handler has a maximum static pressure rating on it, and if you actually take true external static pressure tests, it will fail 80 to 90% of the time. And that's from
Hmm.
ASHRAE. That's not my
Oh
opinion.
yeah, we all know that. Every time we take it, we're like, oh, it's
Right.
borderline.
Right, right. Yeah. Well,
We
yeah,
know
maybe.
this from measuring it.
Usually it's over, but the technician says it's borderline.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other topic. But when it fails that vital, then we propose that diagnostic to the homeowner to pay us to figure out what we have to do to fix the airflow.
Hmm.
So we actually go a step further where we're not just giving options on equipment. I mean, we will if we need to.
Sure.
We're actually having the customer pay us to deep dive into the root cause of maybe why this system failed or didn't last as long as it
Hmm.
could, or setting the new system up for success so it lasts as long
Right.
as it possibly can, right?
Love it.
And so, like what I tell people in HVAC is, well, when they stamp these things with a SEER rating, do you think they put them in a 1980s home, or are they in the nice clean laboratory when they take these
Right.
tests,
Of
right?
course.
It's in a nice clean laboratory,
Yeah.
right? It's in
And
perfect
obviously that's why they came
conditions.
up with Seer 2 to kind of alleviate that some, but
Right, right, yeah. But even so, it's set up on perfect airflow,
right.
right? That's where they're set up. Well, you take those out of the factory, out of the laboratory, and install them in a home, and you put them in a poor airflow model. Well, they're not the SEER rating that they're stamped with because they're
Hmm.
not getting the airflow.
Right.
So we have to set these things up for success. So not only do we deep dive into, giving them options, we deep dive into the root cause of maybe why this system failed and how to make sure the next one lasts longer.
Love it. Love it.
So that's how
That's
we do
great.
it.
Hmm.
Now, listening to you, you may have another concept because there are other there again, there's many different variations of call by call.
Sure.
Sometimes the person on the phone is the main salesperson and they're closing all the deals over
Hmm.
the phone. And I
Right.
know companies that have people doing 15 to 20 million as a phone
Right.
closer, right? Most of my clients, and in our 30 locations, there is a salesperson on site, and
Okay.
the person will back them up to try to close it, but they're not like the actual salesperson.
Sure.
They're
Sure.
more of the backup, like
Yeah.
they're more the closer than the presenter, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah, it does. And that totally does make sense. And you're right. What I have seen is mostly the like this whole company is built around funneling everything to one superstar.
Yeah.
There's a handful of those across the country.
hmm
And for whatever reason, this has been like my topic of the day for the last, I don't know, month,
hmm
is like the horrible artificial inflated numbers. And the bigger problem is a company can't scale that. What happens if that
hmm
guy's sick for a week? What if he breaks
Right.
his leg, right? Sure,
Right.
he's doing it
Right.
from the office, but
Yeah.
you can't like advertise, hey, we went from, 20 million to 800 million and overnight, and
hmm
everything's
hmm
built around one guy doing 20 million or one guy doing
Right.
whatever, right? So
Yeah, I would
that's
agree with
part
you.
of where I start to like
hmm
lose interest in call by call, because
Yeah.
none of that is a business model that can carry forward or build, you know,
Yeah.
different at scale at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely when you're building it around one or two people. Yeah. I totally get that. That makes sense. The more call by call is to me, it's more for the technician
Hmm.
to set the call up for success and not trip over opportunities
Sure.
than it is for the larger sale.
Sure.
So, doesn't matter the trade, plumbing, electric, or HVAC, we want three people to come to the home in a perfect situation. We want the original technician.
Hmm.
We want the what we call field supervisor. You might call them comfort advisors, whatever it is.
Sure.
And then we want the installer to come out, right? And so the technician, the original person, is actually call by call managed the most out of everything.
Sure.
And it's more to make sure we build trust, value, and I say the most important is urgency.
Yeah.
Once we build the urgency, they'll buy the diagnostic. Again, we don't call them that, but that's what I
Hmm.
say. And then we're going to get that field supervisor out there, and then they're going to propose the major repair replacements. And
Sure.
we
Sure.
know it needs it because the vitals failed, right? It's
Right.
not like a guess.
I love this.
Because the standard Nexstar, Praxis S10, whatever service round,
Hmm.
the natural, the old, what I call it, outdated system is we send a technician to a home. We hope the system's old. We hope the technician brings up replacement. We hope the
Hmm.
homeowner wants to talk about replacement. We hope the homeowner has enough time to have a sales guy come out there.
Right.
We hope the sales guy can get there. We hope he sells it, and we hope he doesn't cancel before the installer comes, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's a lot of hopes in that process. And
Right.
if that's your process, which I'm sorry is, on most mature companies run something similar to that,
Hmm.
that is not scalable, repeatable. It's
Hmm.
not because there's too many hopes in it.
Right.
With call by call management, we're forcing most of those, not in like a bad way, but it's
Hmm.
just like the vitals fail. This is an opportunity. We propose this to the homeowner. We don't ask him if he wants a salesperson. We need a field supervisor to come to run the diagnostic the customer paid for, right? And
Sure.
so we're taking a lot of these hopes out.
Hmm.
And by doing that, we are the numbers speak for themselves. We
Sure.
close
Sure.
our average tickets are much, much higher.
Right. So, question along those lines, and a little bit of granular on this. That $500 to $1,500 diagnostic that
hmm
they're paying, right?
hmm
So before that,
hmm
is there a fee? I mean, obviously your standard fee to come out, and then part two to the question: that diagnostic, is that strictly for a diagnostic, or does that apply towards something?
Yeah, so good question. And the answer to that is maybe, depending on the owner, right? Because I work with independent business owners. They can do whatever they want. I can just
Sure.
tell you what I did personally at my
Hmm.
business is we would have a
Yeah.
regular, we call it a
Yeah. So yeah,
travel fee.
tell us what you did, and then maybe best practice. What's recommended would
There
be
you
the
go.
better. Yeah. Let's do
Yeah.
that way.
So we would have a regular travel charge. Now, I know the industry sometimes calls it a diagnostic fee to go out there and
Right.
diagnose it. We
I think
got rid of
everybody's
that
tired
word.
of the weird fake language at this point.
Yeah,
Just
we,
call it what
we
it is.
we
Be
got rid of
authentic.
that because we sell diagnostics in the home, so we can't tell them it's a diagnostic fee to get somebody out there. So it'd be like a travel fee, a service fee,
Hmm.
trip charge, whatever you want to call
Yeah,
it.
the basic prices that
Yeah, so it was
most
like
people have,
let's say
89,
it's
99, whatever.
$89, right? And so the technician would arrive for the $89, and then if it was a repair call and the system wasn't turning on,
Hmm.
we would have like a 189 or a 289. Hey, we need to figure out why it won't turn on, and it will come with, basic minor things. Like if it's just
Sure.
a wiring repair, a fuse, a trip breaker, your batteries are dead in your thermostat, whatever.
Yeah.
Like that
Change
all be
filter
included.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the customer would say, okay, they would pay that. So now we're at, 189 plus 89, right? We're getting
Hmm.
more than what a lot of people are already.
Right.
And then we get the system running, hopefully. Now, maybe it's not heating or cooling, but at least it's up and running, hopefully.
Hmm.
And then we take our vitals. We take our superheat subcool, our temporize, our maximum static pressure, and we know that 80 and 90% of homes are going to fail those vitals.
Hmm.
And so if they fail airflow, which 89% of homes are, well, that's the root cause of why this thing probably broke down.
Hmm.
Yes, it needs a capacitor, or yes, it needs a new condenser motor, whatever it
Sure.
is. Of course, that's obvious. We know that. But
Hmm.
Mrs. Jones, this thing's moving half the amount of air.
Right.
If it's moving half the amount of air, that means it's working twice as hard. If it's working twice as hard, it's going to break down twice as much. It's going to last half as long. Your energy bills could be up to twice as high as they need to be.
Hmm.
And so the first, we got to fix the airflow, Mrs. Jones. That's what we got to do. And so then but we got to figure out why. Why is the airflow failing,
Sure.
right? So
Sure.
then we give them pre-made packages that we have. All of them come with an airflow diagnostic to figure out why the airflow has failed.
Hmm.
And then depending on the lowest one to the higher one, it comes with different things like, 3 or 4 minor universal repairs, a condenser cleaning, a drain line cleaning, right?
Sure.
Like they come with different things. It's up to the homeowner which one they want.
Hmm.
If they just want to figure out the airflow, fine. If they want to basically do like a rejuvenation of the system, fine, right?
Right.
Some include refrigerant, some include sealant, some include
Okay.
dye. It just again depends on the situation
Hmm.
and the level that they're in.
Super intriguing. And this is such a, and thanks for pulling the, kind of basically pulling the curtains to the side and
Yeah,
revealing
yeah.
what's behind the magic curtain here. Because I feel like in so many cases, when companies they hear about call by call and then they think, oh, it's just somebody in the office that's micromanaging somebody out in the field.
Yeah,
And
and
so
it
that's
can
where a
be
lot of
that way, right?
resistance
I mean,
comes from.
it can be that. Like
Yeah,
I can't say that it's not that because it could be in somebody's version.
sure,
Hmm.
sure. And, and that's what I've seen, especially when companies try to do call by call with their sales team. When they
Hmm.
have an actual, turnover type of a model into a CA, or, I call
Yeah.
them project managers.
Hmm.
And then all I hear from these project managers across the country are like, "Oh my God, I have to call before I walk
Hmm.
in the middle of walk while I'm there and tell them
Hmm.
what's going on. And before I present anything, I got to tell them what we're going to presenting." And
Hmm.
so the sentiment is, of course, why am I even here? Why
Right.
did you even train me for any of this?
Right.
And
Right.
so it's like I've seen it
Yeah.
done poorly
Yeah.
so many times. It's refreshing to hear about how
Yeah.
it's actually done properly.
And I'm not saying that doesn't happen because, our whole thing is the successful people we're not gonna manage them that closely if they're doing a good job.
Sure.
But if somebody is struggling, or
Hmm.
we've had conversations of, hey, Frank, choose your name, right? Frank,
Hmm.
like we said, you have to give a minimum of 3 to 4 options every single time. Why
Hmm.
is there only one option on your last 3 calls?
Sure.
That kind of person may have to post his options before he presents because we've had this talk so many times and he still doesn't do it, right?
Sure.
So, like, I'm not saying that doesn't necessarily happen.
Sure.
It does. But I always say it's up to the technician how much we're going to micromanage them. If
Right.
they do the whole process, I don't need to micromanage you.
Yeah,
You
they,
just
they
have to
rock out
post
the
that you
process and crush it. You
just
don't even need to talk
just
to them, right?
just prove that you did it, and you
Mhm.
won't hear a peep from me.
Right. That's what we
Like,
always say is like anytime, especially in like in my Facebook group or just as anybody we hear talking
Mhm.
anywhere, when the complaint is something like, "Oh man, I'm getting managed too much," or "Boy,
Mhm.
they're coming down on us for this or that," the
Yeah.
first question is always like, "Well, what do your numbers look like?
Right.
Are you meeting your required metrics
Hmm.
each
Hmm.
month?" And then if the answer is yes, by how much? Because I'm always like, let's outplay the referee.
Right.
If you're in double overtime and you lose by two and you're like, oh, it's a bad call. My first question is, why the hell were you even in overtime to start with? Why wasn't it a
Yeah.
blowout?
Yeah. There you go. Right.
So
No,
it's like,
totally get it. And that's right. And after doing this so long and helping implement this into many companies, the biggest complainers are usually not the top people. They are usually the, sorry to say it, the more
Hmm.
stubborn older technicians that just don't want to do anything different and they
Sure.
want to get paid their hourly wage like they always did to do what they always did.
Hmm.
And
Well,
those are usually the biggest complainers. And
100%.
I'll tell the owners, I'm like, look at their KPIs. You can
Hmm.
deal with the complaining,
Yeah.
or you can just give this other guy all the opportunity because he's actually doing well and following the
He's doing
system.
what he's supposed
Right?
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's funny. I had a conversation with a company yesterday before, and it was so interesting. They were literally telling me the same thing. They have the sales guy sitting there with the owner, and they have three technicians that are, and so they're the turnover model. And they're like, yeah, one technician, it's awesome. Every time we go out, everybody's primed and ready. And the other two technicians are these old guys that they just want to fix everything. In
Hmm.
fact, sales guys, the project manager tell me, in
Hmm.
fact, I've gone out and they've said, don't buy that top system. You don't need all of that. And he's like,
Yeah.
so how do you overcome that when the technician's running the whole thing? Right.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, I'm like,
Right.
well, how long are you going to put up with two-thirds of your entire service tech team completely destroying your company culture? And if
Yep.
that's the case, then you're only earning a third of the revenue you should be earning.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I mean, they didn't pay me to tell him that.
Right.
but but that's what we right. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
but how long are we going to put up with something before we just
Right.
say, you know what, let's move towards this is something better.
Right. Yeah. No, 100%. And like I have owners tell me all the time, well, how long does it take to implement?
Yeah, that
And
was
I'll
actually my
tell,
next question. When you're
yeah,
moving somebody into it,
a
it's
lot
like,
of
what's that
people
journey look
do.
like?
I always say if everybody does what they're supposed to do, and everybody listens to me, and everybody listens to you while you're listening to me, we should be able to get it set up in 4 to 6 months.
Hmm.
Like really running well in four to
Yeah,
six months, maybe even sooner.
sure.
But what usually holds it back is the management or the owner because
Hmm.
they're not willing to hold people accountable, promote people to customer, right? Like none of
Hmm.
those things.
Right, right.
They're either have a emotional connection to the guys because they've been
Hmm.
with them a long time, or they're just scared of replacing them, or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
And that
Uh,
usually holds things back more than anything.
oh, I could totally see that. Especially, I mean, we get into this, we've heard so long from so many people, well, there's a shortage in the workforce, which
Yeah.
I've never believed. And most
Yeah.
people that are in positions like yours, that's absolutely not true.
Yeah.
You just have to farm them. You build people who are
Right.
going to be great people.
Right.
But
Right.
this is the scarcity mindset of, oh, if I ditch this person, I can't find another one.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you
Yep.
can.
You can. You can. And also with call by call, if seasoned veterans don't like to hear this, but the original technician that goes out in this model only really needs to know how to take the vitals. That's
Mhm.
it, and build trust, value, and urgency.
Sure.
And if they can take the vitals, build trust, value, and urgency, sell one of these diagnostics, then I'm going to bring in somebody else who has all the knowledge and the years of experience and or sales ability or
Mhm.
the desire to want to sell larger repair
Right.
replacement items.
And this was
And
cool. And I feel like that's the missing piece that most people that just hear about call by call, but don't
mhm,
really get into it, or they'll try it. And the missing piece is that in between person.
yeah,
Because most of the time it's just that super, like, this is great. We can get an army of maintenance techs out there
hmm,
and
hmm,
they're focused on turning things over to the one guy
hmm,
that's going to sell the world. Well,
right, right,
and of course, what I'm hearing from you, correct me if I'm wrong, is
hmm.
sometimes the right solution for the homeowner is the repair. And that's
Yep,
where guy number
sometimes,
two verifies that and
hmm,
said, you know what,
right,
maybe you don't need a new
hmm,
system. Maybe this
yeah,
is truly how we can
hmm,
help and build some more trust here and
yeah.
fix that.
Well, and we run an airflow first model. So like we'll literally talk people out of replacing their system until they fix their ductwork. It's
Sure.
like there's no point, Mr. Jones, in replacing a system that's heating and cooling. Now, it may not be heating and cooling well,
Hmm.
but there's no point in putting in a brand new system on a failing airflow.
Right.
Like you got to fix the ductwork first. So let's fix the ductwork And then if you want to replace the system later, you absolutely can, but at least
Hmm.
it's set up for success then.
Right.
And
I
so we'll
love this.
sometimes talk people out of it.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I love this
Yeah.
philosophy because
Hmm.
it gives much more of a longer term vision, right?
Yeah.
It speaks to a
Hmm.
mature company, even no
Hmm.
matter how old the company is, but it
Yeah.
speaks to mature vision in it's funny. Just yesterday, there was a post in a Facebook group. My buddy Brandon Stowe. What's up, Brandon? Give you a shout out. He
I
was
know Brandon.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so he was talking about the companies that in like this huge in fact he was firing shots at sales trainers in our industry.
Hmm.
And I weighed in on it because I partly he wanted my opinion, but the shots fired were teaching all these people how to sell, how to sell, how to sell, and no giving no actual technical skills to back it up.
Yeah.
And so what we end up with is totally lopsided companies that are out here only caring about the immediate dollar. How
Hmm.
fast
Hmm.
can I grow this to a place to sell it with the highest EBITDA
Right.
possible? And then I'm exiting and game over, and that's the end of life.
Right.
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 But that
Hmm.
is not good for the homeowner. That's not good for the
Hmm.
company. They're definitely not giving anybody a successful company after you leave.
Right.
All
Hmm.
of the short-term things. And so what I'd mentioned was, so many people have forgotten the classic book in our industry, HVAC Spells Wealth by Ron Smith, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
One of the biggest things I got out of that years ago when I read it was our goal is not to get customers. Our goal is to get and keep customers.
Hmm. Right.
We've forgotten how to keep them.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
seems
Great
like
point.
a like how
Hmm.
it reinforces that by building. I mean, talk a little bit about now from the perspective of the of homeowners, right? What is
Hmm.
the sentiment with this model versus the traditional model, or how are they feeling when we come out and you double confirm the problem, really
Hmm.
run the deep diagnostic? What
Yeah.
talk about that and like how that conversation evolves through the stages with the people that are there.
Yeah, so it really the success comes with the original person, right? If the original person explains what's going on with the system, explains what comes and what doesn't come with the diagnostic and why another person has to come out, if they do a good job at that, it's not so painful.
Mhm.
Having said that, a lot of times they don't do a good job with that and it turns into be painful.
Sure.
So,
Of course, it's
um,
training and that kind of thing to get
Of
them up to
course,
speed, right? So,
of course, and that's why call by call is difficult to implement. And then there's other pieces to it. What if they have a warranty? What if they have this? What if we sold them the system and now their airflow failed? That right? Like there's just all these nuances.
mhm.
And when people try to implement call by call themselves, their technicians are asking all these questions, and the owners and the managers don't have the answers. And it looks they're not confident in it, and the
Mhm.
whole thing falls apart, and we all revert back to what we do
Yeah, let's just
before.
scrap it and
That's
go back to what we were
Yep,
doing.
yeah, well, I
We
don't
were
that's
making
I
money,
don't know
it's
how to
fine.
yeah, I don't know how to do this. I'm just going to go back to what we did, right?
Mhm.
And so, but if you have somebody like me, I can help walk through everybody through all those issues that come up.
Sure. Sure.
But the point is to answer your question is it's different every time. Every customer is different. Every technician who's with every customer is different, and
Mhm.
we know that. And so when we have our script of the field supervisor arriving, one of the questions they ask, one of the first questions they ask right at the front door is, "Do you understand why I'm here today?"
Oh, that's important, right?
And they'll get everything from, "I didn't know you were coming," like literally,
Mhm.
to, "Yeah, you're here because our system failed and our airflow is 2 inches of water column over when it's supposed," like the perfect answer, right?
Right.
And
Right.
everything in between. And so when the field supervisors arrive, we train them to be like, "You're the manager. Like you
Mhm.
should walk, talk, and act with confidence that you're quality control. You're the manager."
Mhm.
And to answer your question, one of the key phrases we tell homeowners is, "We're the only company in the area that gives an internal second opinion.
Ooh, I like that.
That's why I'm here today," right? It's
Mhm.
not that the other person isn't competent. It's not that they're a young kid and don't know what they're doing. It's
Mhm.
when we see failures of this size, we want to do an internal second opinion. We only want to sell you stuff you actually need.
Right. Oh, I love that.
And
And talk
usually
about
that
build
gets rid of a
trust,
lot of
right?
things. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And it does. Right.
Mhm.
And to your point, maybe it doesn't need replacement. Maybe we
Mhm.
just need to fix it and fix the airflow. And by the way, owners that are listening, and you're like, oh my God, you're talking people out of replacement. There's a 70% gross margin in ductwork, and
Right.
there's usually about a
Or there should
50,
be.
and there should be, and there's usually about a 50% gross margin in equipment. So
Hmm.
you're still making actually better money.
Hmm.
Yeah, the tickets might not be as high, but you're making better money. And then if you can combine the two, you get both and you get a
Right.
60% gross margin, which is statistically higher than most people are getting.
Yeah, absolutely. Blended margins are everything. It's one of the things I train.
Right,
It's like,
right.
let's not mess with our heating and air system. We're going to play with
Mhm.
all of these other things that we can play with,
Exactly. Right.
right?
Because everybody wants to sell boxes, right?
Hmm.
Costco, Home Depot, Amazon, every competitor in the area, they all want to sell boxes.
Hmm.
Well, nowadays I could go into any market. I could probably get 20 to 50 companies to come to my house that all have wrap trucks, that all have extended warranties,
Hmm.
that all have Service
They've
Titan,
got
that
a cool
all have
mascot on the
they
side of their
they all
truck.
got the same thing. Well,
Hmm.
what makes me different?
Right.
Everybody else is the same. Yeah, their name might be different, their mascot might be different.
Hmm.
Even now that dang near every company's on Service Titan, their estimates look the same.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Like
That's so funny that you're talking about this. This is literally one of my main, like, oh
Mhm.
geez, I can't even explain how important this is in what I've been training for the last 2 years.
Mhm.
Is like in a world where everybody's doing the same, nobody's special anymore. One
Exactly.
of the things that I've has also been another soapbox of mine is if you think that a maintenance plan is going to fence your customers in, you're wrong,
Yeah.
because everybody has them now. What
Everybody has them.
fences your
Yep.
customers in is
Hmm.
trust and that
Hmm.
so insanely exceptional service,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
the Chick-fil-A experience, right? Or
Hmm.
we've ordered from DoorDash. The number of times they ping me to let me know my food's been picked up and it's on the way and they're waiting, and but we expect that level of attention to detail and
Yeah.
service.
Hmm.
All we got to do is step outside of our industry and it's everywhere. And
Yeah.
then people wonder why companies that do even a tenth of that in our industry completely explode, because people are begging for this and
Yeah.
not getting it. So
Right.
that's
Right.
my, you cut me monologuing.
No,
That's my,
that's great. No, no,
welcome to my TED Talk.
no, I think you're 100% correct. I mean, when Jim Abrams started 1 hour heating and air conditioning, he was like the king of starting, maybe not the starting, but one of the first to start club memberships.
Hmm.
He brought third party financing. That
Yeah.
wasn't a thing. Extended warranties weren't a thing. Wrap trucks weren't a thing. Technicians
Hmm.
wearing white shirt uniforms weren't a thing. Like these were all brand new. That's what he did to be different.
Hmm.
Well, fast forward almost 30 years later, we're all doing the same things, but everybody in our market is also doing the same
Right.
things, right?
Exactly.
So,
It's fun that you mentioned that too. Everything is coming in a circle. I was having a conversation. It might have been even in one of the podcasts I recorded the last couple of days. And this exact Jim Abrams was mentioned
hmm
for every bit of this, but we
hmm
were talking about how they grew so fast
hmm
in a completely brand new market. And the one piece that you didn't mention is they did it door to door. They
yes, that
sold
was another.
service agreements door to
Yes, door to
door,
door.
took over a market because
Hmm
I have a huge push right now for door to
hmm
door. I've got some
hmm
coaching programs. We're helping companies establish door to door teams,
Nice.
because
I love it.
that is the lowest R. You were earlier you were mentioning, the cost of new client acquisition, six, seven, eight,
Hmm
$900.
Right.
Well, how about we get qualified leads for less than $100, qualified
Right.
appointments for less than
Right.
$100, right?
Yeah.
So,
No, I,
but
I agree. Yeah, if you can sell maintenance agreements or tune-ups door to door and get your foot in there, it is
yeah,
time consuming. It's not fun, but it does work.
it's the highest ROI we could come up
Yeah,
with, right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
cool part, and I love this model, it's really interesting because
Hmm
as a company, I'm in a constant evolution,
hmm
right? I'm not the training company that's going to, master something and then train the exact same thing for 15 or 20 years, like some of
Right.
the other guys that are out there. No, nothing, I
hmm
love everybody out there. Don't hear
hmm
what I'm not saying.
Yeah, I understand.
But at the same time, there's this constant evolution of how people buy
Hmm
and the way,
hmm
how they place their trust in the people they're buying from.
hmm
That's why the move for video testimonies versus just written reviews, all those kind of
hmm
things.
hmm
So I love this because let's dive in a little more into this trust factor with a homeowner.
Yeah.
Because you've been around obviously long enough in a lot of different aspects of the trades now. At the end of the day, that's really the only word that matters.
Hmm.
is trust. Do they
Hmm.
trust us implicitly, right?
Right.
One
Right.
of the closes, one of the different types of different ways to close is like, hey, we don't have the luxury of, you know, working together for 10 years and having 4 or 5 projects. But if we had, and they all worked correctly and they were all priced right, we wouldn't even be having this conversation now to get 3 bids, or
Hmm.
we would just be deciding what we're doing. Right. Right.
Hmm.
And the homeowners always agree to that. So we know trust is the
Hmm.
main thing. So
Hmm.
dive in
Hmm.
on that a little bit.
Yeah.
And actually, kind of a part two to that, I'd love for you to cover what happens to a company's culture
Hmm.
once that transition starts to happen and everybody really starts to hit on the right cylinders and the company starts to grow. What happens to the energy and the culture and the urgency within the company? Not
Hmm.
even creating urgency out there, but inside.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think I always mention this that, COVID shook everything up, as we know.
Mm-hmm.
That's obvious. And the other funny thing I want to bring up about Jim Abrams is they built that before the internet.
Yeah,
Like, I can't even
100%.
imagine running a franchise in all these locations with no cloud-based software, with no internet. It was all done through fax machines and on-site, management. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, that's like
Uh,
legend status right there. I
right, that's
100% agree.
unbelievable. And I know Terry Nicholson, and I've had conversations with him. He helped build it, but so trust, yeah. So what happened since COVID is your your business today should be charging double, if not more than double, of what you did 5 years ago, during 4 to 5 years ago during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So with inflation, we now have to charge double what we did 4 to 5 years ago, right? So
Right.
that's one thing. So we used to cut like on a maintenance, tune up. Let's say we go on a tune up, and I know I'm harping on HVAC here, but it
No,
seems
go
like
for it.
that's the
That's
most.
most of the vertical here with this
Yeah,
podcast.
who
So,
cares about us stupid electricians? We'll just get. I just kidding.
we love you
But
all, plumbers, electricians, garage door
yeah,
guys. I
yeah,
even
no,
had
they're all
somebody
good, right?
message me that sells like California closets one time and lighting.
Oh yeah,
And
yep,
so
yep.
everybody listens,
Everybody,
mostly HVAC.
it's all the same. It's just different things.
Yeah,
But
different
but the
widgets.
point is that our prices have doubled or more than doubled that they did then. Now, they
Right,
thought we were expensive then, right? So if we sold a UV bulb at $600 then, now it's $1,200
right.
for a UV, right? And so that's one side of the coin. We not only is the economy down, inflation is high, people are unstable about the government, and I think now the elections are over. I think it's a little better, but so people are still a little upset
Mm-hmm.
or distraught, I should say, not confident. Um, our prices are double, right? And then here's the other thing I think that's changed since COVID is how people are being pressured to buy things a lot more than they used to. Like
100%.
you can't even go to the gas station now with them wanting to sell you cookies or a car wash package or a club perks club membership or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
That never happened 4 or 5 years ago. I don't remember ever going to a gas station. They're trying to upsell me things,
Right.
like it's you're a gas
Yeah,
station
to pay for your
person.
gas, it's like you
Yeah,
know on like 3 different pop-up
yeah. Do you
bubbles.
want a car wash? Do you want all this stuff? And so I think when we go on a service call, like especially plumbing and electric, when we do like our complimentary 15, 20, 30 point safety inspection, right?
Right.
People would think we were doing that because we cared about them. We were doing it for a service, and it wasn't. And we all knew it was to get extra sales, but it was also to help the client.
Sure.
I think now a lot more are thinking you're just doing this to get more money out of me because they're being sold so much stuff,
Yep.
and the prices are double than what
Mm-hmm.
they were 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Right. And if their
And
language
that
isn't
builds up
right, every
trust.
time you're here, you try to sell me something.
There you go, right? Yeah, man, every time you guys are coming, right? You try to sell me something.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, when that phrase comes up when our field supervisor arrives, his response is supposed to be, "Well, that's exactly why I'm here. We don't want to nickel and dime you. We want to figure out the root cause." Like, I don't think we figured out the root cause, right? So
Yeah,
I
love it.
just thought that was funny that you brought that up because that's very common. People
That's
say
funny.
that.
I'm about to do an episode on the 3 T's.
There you go. And so I think that really changed with all that stuff. And so instead of telling the customer your opinion. You should change it because a new one's going to be more efficient.
Hmm.
You should put in a water softener so your water's better. You should change your panel because it's old. People don't want to hear that anymore. I don't
Correct.
want your opinion. You need to do better than that.
Hmm.
And so that's why we check the vitals like the doctor's office. Every time you go to the doctor, they check the same vitals every time.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter why you're there, they check them every time. And they don't ask, they tell you, we're going to check your
Here's what we're
vitals,
doing.
right?
Hmm.
And then if those vitals fail, they send you to a specialist and they run more tests and they charge you for those tests. So we do the exact same thing. Your vitals fail, we're going to prove to you your vitals fail. So like HVAC.
Hmm.
We know my meter is telling us that you're running at, 0.75 inches of water column static and your system's rated at zero point 0.5 max. That tells us your system's working 50% harder than it needs to.
Right.
It's not my opinion.
Hmm.
There's my meter. There's the nameplate. I'm literally going to circle it with a Sharpie and point
Hmm.
a flashlight on it so they can see it.
Right.
It's not my opinion. So once we get the customer to understand that the system is broken or more broken than they thought it was,
Sure.
now they trust you because you're not making it up. It's
Hmm.
factual and your opinion means nothing.
Love it.
Then they purchase the diagnostic from you, and now they have skin in the game, which proves they trust you, by the
Hmm.
way.
Right.
And because you've built urgency, that they need to figure this out.
Hmm.
And once you have trust, value, urgency, and a diagnostic sold, you basically took your competition out at the knees. They don't exist anymore.
Love it. Love it. This is cool. This is really, really cool. It's really fun too because it lines up with what I've been, what I've been training and saying, and it's great confirmation. Is people don't buy from the pain points and the logic anymore. They're
Hmm.
not. People are not avoiding pain for the most part when they're making these purchases, and marry that together with people will always pay more for what they want than what they need. And
Hmm.
so now we're
Hmm.
looking, what I've really been emphasizing is, and really the foundation of most of Close It Now is help them see the immediate difference that their life is going to experience and paint that picture.
Hmm.
Because I don't care what time of year it is, if it's shoulder months or spring or fall or whenever, if I know without a shadow of a doubt that my 12-year-old daughter's room is she's not going to have be sweating at night now and not have a fan on her face and her ceiling fan, and but by extension she's going to have a better easier morning and do better in school and better in her theater
Hmm.
because she
Hmm.
sleeps better because I spent money to fix her temperature in her room. I don't care what time of year it is.
Right.
That's the
Right.
that's the urgency difference versus, well, this is broken and if you fix it it's going to fix the airflow so now these metrics will
Yeah.
be right. Well,
Hmm.
yeah, but why do I care?
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's like
Tying
tying
it
that
back to the
together.
benefit. Yeah. What's
Yeah,
the
but they
benefit of
have
it?
to see that that's truly cause because their
Right.
problem is the room's too hot. The
Hmm.
problem is
Hmm.
not the fact that this ductwork was disconnected, so to speak. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I love this so much because it just reinforces all of this, but it really helps to marry it all together at the same time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what does this do? So like when I start working with a company, most companies on the lower end are between 800 and maybe $1,000 average ticket, blended between everything. The medium companies are maybe 1,000 to 1,200. The really good companies are 1,200 to 1,400.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're done with implementation, again, assuming they follow everything I say, they do everything I
Mm-hmm.
say, and they manage their technicians and they do all that, we usually can get a $2,000 minimum average ticket. So I
Ooh,
can I
yeah.
can usually, and the worst ones, the ultimate worst ones are maybe 15 to 1,600.
Wow.
So usually I can increase sales 50 to 100% without spending any more money on marketing,
Mm-hmm.
without hiring any more people or any additional number of people anyway, maybe new
Sure.
people, without booking more calls,
Mm-hmm.
without adding any more overhead. Now you may need more install crews because you're selling more stuff,
Sure.
but
That's its
other
own
than
problem
that,
though.
yeah, that's a good
Everybody
problem,
wants
right?
that problem.
Yeah, assuming you're priced right, that's a good problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So so
so
yeah.
one more
Hmm.
question then, because
Hmm.
I see that and hope you're good on time here.
No, I'm good. Yeah, yeah.
So in transitioning a company to more of this model,
Hmm.
and I could see different existing models transitioning a little simpler and a little easier. So I, I guess another two-part question. That's the theme of the day. Sounds like then transitioning a company that's already mostly text or say mostly selling text into a call by call model that say that doesn't have, your typical comfort advisor project manager. That seems to would be a lot easier transition than
Mhm.
maybe a company that's set up on a sales model where they're doing flips to, straight salespeople.
Mhm.
And
So
and
like a
when that
selling tech
happens,
model, you mean? Or
yeah, so you've got your selling tech model, and then but then
yep.
you've got your traditional service technician turning things over to a comfort
Turnover
advisor
model. Yep.
model, right? The turnover
Yep.
model.
Right. Right.
So the selling tech model, this seems to be kind of an easy no brainer in this
hmm
transition.
hmm
Am I right in kind of pulling that from
Yes.
it?
Yes. Yeah.
So with the other model though,
Yeah. Well,
what do we do?
I'll speak to that, but
Okay,
yes and no. Yes
so
and no.
get us there.
Okay.
Walk us into it, starting with the selling tech model.
So the selling tech the
I'm
number
sorry,
one
super quick
problem.
timeout. The reason I'm
Oh, sure.
asking too
hmm
is I want the people that are considering this but are
hmm
hesitant
hmm
for a couple of these reasons to maybe get talked off the ledge on a little bit of this. And
Sure.
for everybody listening, I'm not saying do this or don't do this.
hmm
We're bringing you another option of a way to run your own business, right?
Right.
So it's another tool in the toolbox.
Exactly.
But talk us through that journey, like that
Yeah.
transition between those two models and how they can transition, and then what the heck do we do with all the comfort advisors then?
Right. Right. So the 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 thing is when people run selling technicians, and I know this well because I used to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you and Terry Nicholson actually opened my eyes up to this. He's like, the problem with selling technicians is you don't know when it's an opportunity or not. So how do you really know how good they are or not, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Because if you're going to a house and yeah, this certain person might be your top seller, but that doesn't mean they're tripping over a ton of opportunities that you don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what also call by call management does. It reveals the opportunities so you know when it's an opportunity call or not an opportunity call. And then you can
Mm-hmm.
actually track it. So my advice is if you're doing a tech if you're doing a selling technician model, whether you do call by call manager or not, start implementing what we call double dispatching. So when you find out that it's an opportunity and they're going to present major repair replacement, you
Mm-hmm.
you dispatch them a whole new job so you can track them completely separately.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a good technician or are you a good field supervisor? Which one are you,
Right.
right? And so first of all, we have to know if they have the opportunities or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then we double dispatch them. So in a sense, they are the comfort advisor. They're just doing two positions, right?
Sure.
But they have to run the first model, take their imaginary hat off, put their imaginary new hat on, and then run the other model.
Right.
But that usually doesn't happen. What happens is selling technicians walk in, yeah, it's broken. Yeah, I mean, I could probably fix it for $800, but this thing's getting pretty old. I could put in a whole new system for X amount of dollars a month, and you get a 10-year warranty.
Right.
And that's how they sell a system,
Mm-hmm.
right? But very few options, if any. We
Yeah.
didn't dive into the ductwork. We didn't
It's
even give
only the
them
handful
option
of
for
unicorns that, really
right.
build it up right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so as long as you can run the same thing with a selling technician model, they're doing the same thing. It's just one person's doing two positions. That's all.
Sure.
And then on the other side of the coin, I really like the flip model because if there is a selling technician that truly is that good at selling and we track it and we know it,
Mm-hmm.
we don't want him running straight up calls. We want to only feed him or her the best, most qualified calls we have.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we want to send them out to a house where possibly the nanny is there and can't make a decision?
Right.
Why would we want to sell them to a house with a for sale sign in the yard?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
why would we want to send him to those homes? He's
Mm-hmm.
our best guy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's give him the qualified leads that these other people are farming for us all day long.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in every company, there is one top producer. He or she may only have a 1% closing rate different, but they're still the top person,
Yeah.
which means they should be getting all the qualified leads
Mm-hmm.
because they're the Michael Jordan of your team.
Yeah, they've earned it, right?
Yeah.
So so let's talk about what transitioning a company that uses we'll take I'm just thinking of a generic company, say they're $30 million a year, they've got 16, 18 techs and 10 people in the sales team, right? How would you transition that? Right. But
So the
and so
bigger
I picked that
the,
size just for the sheer
yeah,
number of advisors that are there and
yeah,
what do we do with them? Because
yeah.
that's the biggest one of the biggest questions I get is, hey,
Mhm.
we're kind of thinking about this, but what do we do with all these extra people that don't fit this model so much?
Right. The bigger the company, the harder it is to implement. Period.
Sure.
Um, the best companies to implement are 7 to 8 people, field people.
Hmm.
But when you get into those 10, 20, 30, employees, trucks running around, whatever type of thing, it gets more difficult. If I haven't worked with a company of that size, me personally,
Hmm.
other than the one I've built,
Yeah.
but
Well, let's scale it down a little bit. I mean,
yeah,
it's really the question is kind of the same. It's just add
yeah.
zeros if it scales.
But what I would do is I would take, okay, who do you think your top person is? Because I promise you, most people truly don't know.
Hmm.
They go by whoever sells the most, and that's not always true.
Right.
I would say let's take that person and let's build two technicians below them and just start feeding that one person running this system.
Hmm.
Once we start seeing this working and we start moving with this, then we can add another one and another one and another one. Because trying to change everybody might be difficult.
Sure. No,
So
I could totally see that.
that's probably how I would go
So
about
kind of
that.
like interesting though. So it sounds like then instead of just I'm really starting to dig this because instead of the time delay of the technicians there, call the
Hmm.
office, dispatch
Hmm.
somebody else, the
Hmm.
travel time, the booking
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
Basically, it means that that CA or project manager is now these are the hours that you are immediately available.
Hmm.
This technician's there. Sometimes maybe do they even go with them two at a time, or is it more like
Sometimes,
sometimes that
yep.
model?
We call that a power flip or a
Yeah,
force flip. And we'll have because we know 80 to 90% homes fail airflow, the odds are on our side. And
sure.
so
Especially if you
we
know the specific neighborhoods or those kind of things anyway, right?
yeah, yeah. And so we might have the field supervisor park a block down the road around the corner.
Mhm.
We know within 30 minutes of arrival we should have our vitals, so we
Sure,
know if the system's failing within 30 minutes. And once the system fails, if the customer doesn't want to buy a diagnostic, we'll probably give it away complimentary because our field supervisor is a block down the road.
sure.
And so we'll make sure that him or her gets into the
Hmm.
home
Hmm.
regardless. But what usually happens in real life, it sounds
Sure.
good on paper that the field supervisor has an open day, right?
Right. Yeah.
But what
Let's give us a real
usually happens,
practical
yeah,
look at this, though.
but in real life, what happens is the evening before, there's a tech out till 5, 6 o'clock at night that needs a field supervisor, and then we get them out there the next day, right? So like,
Sure.
it's usually not as smooth as we would like it to be, where the field supervisor is just always available, right?
Instant. Yeah. Have it enough to have a rotation where somebody's that evening on call and
Yeah,
immediately
well, then you
begin.
have on call, and then you can start getting pickier. Well, we're not going to send field supervisors out unless a diagnostic is sold, or
Sure.
we get more desperate. We're just going to send them out every time, and we're going to give it away complimentary if we have
Sure.
to.
Well, that's a now you have a new lever that's never been there before you can pull for
Exactly.
business.
And that's your call by call manager and your sales manager. And because they have visibility to everything going on, they turns their dispatch board into a chessboard. Now we're
Interesting.
going to move our pieces to
Hmm.
win the day every single day
Right.
instead of set it and forget it, the board.
I love this so much. So this has been very insightful.
Good.
Thank you for it's time to land the plane, or we could just keep going,
Yeah,
I'm
we
sure.
could probably talk for a long time.
But
Yes.
so tell us, so within your organization, of course, you're, with on your platform that you're training this. Do
Hmm.
you coach and train this outside of y'all's platform? Is there a way that
Yeah.
people can reach out to you to get some contact, and what's that look like?
Yeah. So the platform is a totally separate thing from what I do. I just learn a lot and see a lot because we do a $500 million in sales. So like
Sure.
we can test things and we know things that happen over there. But yeah, I do consulting. I only work with 10 companies at a time.
Hmm.
So sometimes I have room, sometimes I have to put you on a waiting list. But you can email me is probably the best, which is KB with a BOLL 5096 at gmail.com.
Okay.
I'm Kent Boll on Facebook, KentBoll.
Hmm.
And there's two of them. There's my personal and there's my coaching one. Doesn't matter. You get to me either way.
Perfect.
And I'd be happy to set up a call just to see what you do,
Yeah.
what you're looking to do. And again, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and garage doors. I've created this process for all four of those trades. So
Love it. Love it. So, and of course, are you in the in my Facebook group, in the Close It Now group now? If you're not, I'll
I
make sure to
don't
get you an
know.
invite.
But yeah, yeah, send me an invite if I'm not. So,
Yeah. So
but it,
we'll
it
get
seems
Kent.
like I've been getting kicked out of a lot of groups because people keep asking me questions, and I think the groups want to sell their own coaching stuff, so they kick me out. But
Of course.
go ahead.
Well, I'll tell you what, I love to support everyone. There is so many people that need help. We
There
could
is.
multiply every single one of us by
I
10 and
know.
still not
I
have
know
enough
it.
people.
I agree.
So,
100%. I
and
agree.
I love having different voices and different perspectives because
Hmm.
my message might not relate to some people and yours
Hmm.
might or somebody
Yeah.
else's might,
Vice
and it's
versa,
okay.
right?
It's great. So, but yeah,
Absolutely.
so you definitely invited. I'll make sure everybody listening, I'll make sure Kent's in the Facebook group when we launch this podcast. It's actually, so we're recording November 20th, 2024. It's going to
Okay.
go up probably within this next week or so.
Cool.
So when this episode does launch, everybody, I'll make sure to get Kent's contact information in the show notes,
That'd be
and then
great.
we'll put a post up and make sure he's tagged. So if you want to reach out to him, ask more questions, find out more about call by call coaching and that kind of thing, reach out to Kent Boll, and he is your resident expert in all things call by call. And so
I
it's
love
been
it.
great connecting with you, man. Any parting words, or if you were recommended to a company, like what's one actionable item they can start doing right now to kind of see if that's even something they want to think about?
Um, I would be looking at your average tickets. I mean, if your average tickets are 800 to 1,000 or even 1,000 to 1,200, just know that there are people doing double or more than double than that, and I know it's possible. My electrical company, we were doing $2,000 average tickets back in 2014,
Sure.
and there are still people not hitting that today,
Hmm.
and our prices have probably tripled since then.
Yeah.
So.
So that'd be 5 or 6 for you guys now.
Yeah, right. And so I know it's possible. Again, I like your words, the right levers. You have the trucks, you have the people, you have the calls. You just need to pull the right levers, and we can get this thing rocking and rolling better than it ever did before.
I love it. Well, thank you for that. And everybody that's been hanging out this long, thank you for sticking around. One thing that I would ask is reviews. Reviews are everything for all of your companies live and die by. Mine does too.
Mhm.
So I have an offer for you. If you will leave me a 5-star review, I read your review online or on a podcast, then I want to give you a coaching call. And so it's
Nice.
it's normally for everybody, it's about $1,000 for a 1 hour coaching session. And we are doing those at doing them for reviews right now. So, but basically, because we love everybody, want to help as many as people as possible, and this time of year, it's nice to get a little bit extra help. And who didn't need more reviews? So we love it. So
Great.
everybody, leave me a review. You can go to Google, go to Facebook, go to Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen, and YouTube. Make sure to check out the new YouTube channel. Like, subscribe. Every daily, we're uploading a video into YouTube, so we're creating a big following in there. And everybody else. Last announcement is Boston, April 29th, 30th, and May 1st is going to be Boston, Massachusetts. The Close It Now event is called Relentless. That we are naming it Relentless because it's what we have to be in this market. It has to be such a transformation. So it's relentless, the ultimate sales transformation. We have to start doing things differently to get different results. Just like Kent was saying, if we continue to do the things we've always done, we're going to get what we've always got. So that's a huge part of what we're training at this 3-day event is how do people buy in 2025 and how to best position ourselves moving forward into this next year a lot of these concepts and principles are going to be, really, really training them. It's not just a training; we call it transformation because there's some things that will happen during this event, everybody, that you will not leave the same person. And so people are calling us the Tony Robbins of the trades for training, and we are leaning into that. And so it's wildly different than anything you've ever experienced and more transformational in the way that your numbers don't go back south once you've come to the training. And so they adjust upwards and stay there on your growth path, which is wildly different than most trainings most people go to. So in the show notes will be the Eventbrite ticket link. So make sure to grab that. Send some people, send your whole team. It's going to be great. In fact, we were just mentioning some of mutual friend of ours that is going to be our boots on the ground hosting in Boston. So everybody, if you know Jonathan Neves, he is an incredible business operator in Boston, and he is. I'm putting this out there. I'll ask him, make sure it's okay, but we might even get him to speak a little bit at the event also. So
Nice.
that's the last announcement for the day. Thanks for sticking around, everybody. Thanks, Kent. It has been incredible, and I am excited to see where this goes and how it changes the face of our industry. It's what's happening now.
Hmm.
It's not the future thing; it is the now thing. And everybody, if you it's just like dinosaurs. If you don't adapt to change, then you better get used to extinction.
Hmm.
That's truly what's happening. And keep doing the things the old way, you're going
Yep,
to get the
I
old
agree.
numbers. So,
Hmm.
all right, everybody. Until next time, go be someone worth buying from.